and welcome back to Wondergoal Live, the World Cup edition, sponsored by bet365. The World Cup begins on Sunday, and today I'll be joined by my colleagues, my co-hosts, BJ Cunningham, Anthony Dabbundo, and the three of us will give out some best bets. We'll go over all the marquee matchups, and then we'll do some quick fire on the rest of the matches over Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. That's the first 3 days of the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. But before we get into our bets and before I bring in my friends, a reminder that Wondergoal is presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey and Colorado. Bet $1 on any game, get 200 free. All right, let's get going, boys. BJ, I'm going to start with you. Your favorite bet for the first 3 match days of the World Cup, and it's a doozy.
I love our boys, Michael, the Americans. Draw no bet at -120 against Wales. If you listen to our preview podcast, you know my feelings about Wales, about how they're a complete luck box. They've essentially, when they have to play good competition, they have not fared very well. They were in a World Cup qualifying group with Belgium and the Czech Republic, so 2 matches each against those 2 sides. And then in the Euros, they had 1 good match against Turkey. But other than that, they played Italy, they played Switzerland, and they played Denmark. So essentially, we have 7 matches against good competition. They have a -6.7 expected goal differential in those 7 matches. So they have not been competitive whatsoever. This is a match where the United States is going to control a majority of the possession. Wales usually sits in a very, very deep low block, sometimes a 4-4-2, sometimes a 5-3-2. And the reality is that Wales is a heavy, direct counterattacking side. And what's the biggest strength of this United States team? It's in the midfield with Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, and Yunus Musa, who are all outstanding defenders in transition, can press very well. And the biggest weakness for the United States team is that when they're not organized in defense and they're basically in scramble mode when teams force high turnovers against them, that's when they can get picked apart. Wales is not going to press them high. They're going to sit deep. So they're not going to be able to take advantage of that one weakness for the Americans. And the reality is the Americans are going to have to break down a low block. But the line is telling you that these 2 teams are essentially even. If you look through the Wales roster, Gareth Bale's on the wrong side of 30. Joe Allen's probably not even going to play in this first match. Aaron Ramsey's on the wrong side of 30. Kiefer Moore can't do anything but head the ball into the net. So it's a great spot here for the Americans in the first match. It's essentially a winner go home game, right? Because these 2 teams essentially are even on the odds of to qualify. So I have the Americans projected at +104. I mean, this is the first big test for them facing somebody outside of CONCACAF since we didn't qualify for the 2018 World Cup. So it will be a big test, but a lot of our players are playing across Europe. They've seen these guys before. We have more talent than this team. We should be able to run them over in the midfield. So I love the Americans. Draw no bet at -120.
That is a 2 p.m. kickoff on Monday. I'm going to go to the 11 a.m. kickoff on that day. It's Senegal and the Netherlands. I like the Lions of Teranga. I like Senegal 5-1 on the money line. It's a big number, but I think it underrates this Senegal team. Yes, they're without Sadio Mane. Yes, the Netherlands are the odds-on favorite to win Group A. But I don't think that the gap is as wide between these 2 teams as these odds are implying. Senegal is still really deep down the middle. Idrissa Gana Gueye is one of the best defensive midfielders. He's great at snuffing out counterattacks. They have a great center back in Kalidou Koulibaly. Their goalkeeper, Edouard Mendy. He might not be in the best form right now, but last year, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and they still can score, even without Sadio Mane, with Ismail Assar, with Dia. This is still a very dangerous team. I think that the market is moving too much based off the Sadio Mane news. All 3 of us are pretty bullish on Netherlands over the long term of the tournament, but this is betting. It comes down to the price, and I think the price is good enough on Senegal to maybe pull an upset on Monday against Clockwork Orange. Anthony, your favorite bet for these first 3 match days?
Yeah, it's going to be also on Monday, 8 a.m. Eastern, Iran versus England. England is a team that we've debated. I know BJ's wearing an England jersey right now. He's all in on the 3 Lions to bring football home, but I'm a little bit more skeptical of them, at least early in the tournament, where I think they may have some issues. One, they're dealing with a ton of injuries. We don't know if Kyle Walker will be back for this game. We know Reece James is out. They have some fullback concerns that I think the direct style of Iran can kind of take advantage of with Taremi. Fard, long balls up to them. Usually Walker is kind of the sweeper for England. He cleans up a lot of messes for Southgate. Kieran Trippier, just not that level of defender. I'm guessing we're going to see him in this game. And you have to go back to Iran's last trip to the World Cup. They were in a group with Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. It was an underrated group. Iran only won 1 game. They beat Morocco 1-0. but they were very competitive with Spain and with Portugal. And I think they're just a very difficult team to play against. They tied 1-1 with Portugal and lost 1-0 to Spain. They play a very compact defensive style. They brought back their manager from that World Cup, sacked their manager that got them to the World Cup this year, fired him, brought in the old manager from 2014 and 2018, their last two World Cup trips. They're an underrated team because of how compact they are defensively. And the one thing we know about England is that they've had issues breaking down teams who are very defensive and who are willing to cede possession to them. England much more dangerous in transition. So I like Iran plus 1.5 at -120. I think this game's going to be very competitive. Could be 1-0 for sure, but could also see Iran surprising England here early in this tournament.
All right, let's talk about some marquee matchups now. We'll start with the opener, the table setter. FIFA moved the entire tournament up a day just to make sure that Qatar got a standalone matchup on Sunday, November the 20th. They'll be taking on Ecuador. Ecuador is plus 125 at the moment. Qatar plus 240. The draw here is plus 220. A lot to unpack here, and not a lot of it takes place on the field. BJ, give us your thoughts here on Ecuador and the hosts.
Right. So if everything was being equal, we were playing this match at a neutral field, neither team really had any rest advantage, and all things being equal, I would say, yeah, Ecuador is a deserving favorite. They probably should be about -110, -115, but there is a ton of stuff and gives a ton of advantages here for Qatar. So first off, all of their players play in the Qatari Stars League, which went on pause on September 14th. But not only that, Michael, all of their players have not played for their club teams this season. They've been in national team training for the last 6 months, gearing up for this World Cup on home soil, while Ecuador has 7 days to prepare. That's an incredible advantage for Qatar, and not only for rest, but preparation as well. So they'll be very well drilled and ready for this match. They play a very deep low block when they have to play good competition, usually a 5-3-2. We saw that when they played the United States in the Gold Cup 2 summers ago. They gave the U.S. a heck of a match. Expected goals was about even in that one, and Qatar even missed a penalty that could have had them go up 1-0. The reality is that this Qatar team has been playing together for a really, really long time. They have over 1,000 international caps together. They know what they want to do defensively. They're going to be very compact. What Ecuador likes to do, Michael, is they like to create a lot of overloads in the middle of the pitch. They love to open up the wings where they have great fullbacks like Estupitan and the other right back to get moving forward to create a lot of chances, swinging crosses into the box. Well, Qatar's going to play a 5-man back line, so they're going to be able to take away a lot of those channels down the flanks. They're going to be very compact in the middle. It's going to be very, very difficult for Ecuador to break down this low block, and I have concerns with Ecuador strikers like Enter Valencia, who's on the wrong side of 30, and being able to finish. So I like Qatar. I'm going to take a bet out of the Anthony Dabbundo playbook. I'm going to take Qatar plus 0.25, essentially splitting the bet with Qatar, draw no bet, and Qatar plus half a goal at -110. So that's where I'm going in this first match. I think the host nation has too many advantages to be an underdog here.
Anthony, you were close to joining BJ, but some line movement. We've seen money come in on Qatar. I don't think it's going to stop as people kind of buy into this narrative of, host nation, first game, home field advantage, FIFA, all of that good stuff. But you think you could make a case here for the Maroons?
Yeah, this line opened, Qatar was plus 0.5. Now they've come down all the way to plus 0.25. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're betting soccer, it is quite a lot. Because there's not a lot of goals, and I don't anticipate a lot of goals in this match. I think from a macro point of view, it is very interesting. Early in this tournament, because of the quick turnaround, how sharp are these teams going to be? How much time do they really have to come together? We know that's a problem for every team in this tournament, but one, like BJ mentioned. And so the spot for me is not great for Ecuador. I think it's a bad one. I think this one could very well end in a draw, but I am not taking the plus 0.25 because I think the number is now come down into range where it's pretty much right.
I actually am going to go against what you just said there. I like the over 2.5. It's plus 150. Both of these teams, it's a must win, right? They'll fancy this as their most winnable match of their group stage. They'll both think we need to put 3 points in our pockets, have a chance to get out of here, maybe a chance to surprise and win the group. So I'm expecting both teams to be on the front foot, or at least to look for opportunities to attack. And the other thing here is I don't trust either of them not to make mistakes. Like, this is the first game of a World Cup. Ecuador, like BJ said, they're all coming from all over the world to gel together. Qatar, they're just not talented, right? You can't trust a team with this talent level to not make mistakes. So I think we could see a cheap goal or two, maybe a dumb foul in the box that leads to a penalty. And one goal opens this thing up because the other team will need to get something out of it. So I think the over 2.5 plus 150 is a good bet. I wouldn't hate live betting the over if the game starts slow, if it's like, 0-0 in those first 25, 30 minutes, because I just think one goal really, really opens this thing up for both teams and should play into the hands of both teams as well. Like Ecuador is not a team that is typically going to have a lot of the ball in CONMEBOL qualifying against teams like Brazil and Argentina, Chile. So I think that, them being a little kind of out of sorts plays into what Qatar wants to do, which is they're going to want to counter and win the ball counter. And that could definitely lead to some goals or a goal for Qatar. Opens things up once again for Ecuador, who has more talent. All right, BJ, we heard your thoughts on the Americans' first game. They're plus 170, slight favorites over Wales, who are plus 200. The draw is plus 190. Of course, these odds are from bet365. This game is 2 p.m. kickoff on Monday. One thing I want to note is that the total is very low. We're looking at a 2 minus 110 on both sides. So odds makers are saying pretty low event game. I don't know if that's going to be the case. And I think if it is more high event, it definitely does suit the Americans. But before I give my bet, Anthony, what are your thoughts here, USA and Wales?
You mentioned the total at 2 in this game, and I think it fits into the narrative of this group. We talked about this for England, Iran, and now for USA, Wales. Low totals are going to be what drives this group in a lot of tight, low-scoring games. And there are questions about both teams in attack. Wales has been in terrible form. I mean, they got absolutely trucked in their Nations League group with Netherlands, Belgium, and even Poland. They managed one result in 6 matches. They haven't won any of those matches. So they come into this World Cup in terrible form. And I know BJ is very down on them. The price is not good enough for me, however, on the United States to be laying, minus 115, minus 120 on the draw no bet line, because I have a lot of question marks about them as well. I think that we have seen the United States excel in some situations where they've been not tasked with having the ball and not forced to break down an opponent who's going to sit deeper. They don't have the passing quality right now, and they don't have the consistency, and they don't have the form for me to trust them as a favorite here. So I'm going to be passing. It would be USA or nothing, because I agree with BJ that they're the more talented team. But again, I think there's a very real chance that this game is a bit of a stalemate and that no one's able to really break through, because I think the U.S. is okay transitionally in defense, but from an attacking point of view, we still have a lot of question marks, and we haven't really seen a lot of these USA players play together because they've always been in and out of injury. So it's a lot of question marks here. I'm staying away.
I like the plus 170 money line on the U.S. here. We've talked about the talent disparity. It's pretty wide. Typically, I like to bet Wales in these tournaments because they're usually offered at big prices, and they're experts at hanging around at games, nicking a winner through Bale or Ramsey. But I actually think we're going to see a more aggressive Wales here. They're coming into a tournament for the first time since 1958. This is their first World Cup since 1958. They're going to be one of the only teams with like a really rowdy, robust, well-attended visiting tourist fans, because it's their first World Cup since 1958. It's a country that's going crazy over this team, and they're going to fancy themselves to be able to nick 3 points against the Americans, even as underdogs. So I actually think everybody is kind of assuming that Wales is going to sit back. That's what we normally see them against teams in European competition. But those teams are much, at a much higher level than the Americans, or they're playing them in like knockout games where they just need to hang around, drag them deep into the waters, and then hope that Bale or Ramsey can work a moment of magic to win it. So I actually think this game is going to be a little bit more hectic than the odds makers think, than people think. And I think that should help the U.S. talent level shine through. I like the United States. Anything above like plus 160, I think is playable on the 3-way money line. So that's us, all 3 of us on the Americans in some way or another. Anthony, a little trepidatious, but that should go well for us. Let's look at the last marquee game. We already got some thoughts from Anthony on England and Iran. This is the other Group B game, so we got to touch on it. England's minus 300 against Iran, 10-1 on the money line. The draw here is plus 375. I'm kind of in the same boat as Anthony. I think that this game has a slow start written all over it, so I like the under half a goal or no goals in the first half at plus 162. I'm expecting England to take a long time to get their feet wet in this World Cup. They're so conservative. They're so pragmatic. And that often, just leads to these slow starts. Look what happened at the Euros, right? They played in a group with Scotland, Croatia, and the Czech Republic, BJ. How many goals did they score?
Doesn't matter. They went to the final, Mike.
Right. But for this bet, they scored 2 goals. And only one of them came in the first half. I think we're going to see a very slow starting England as they try to figure out how to break down a really tenacious Iran defense. So under half a goal in the first half for me. Pain written all over it when Harry Kane scores a 3rd-minute penalty.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I like England to win 0. Honestly, it's only sitting at -130 right now. Iran does have 2 good strikers. But again, they're going to sit very deep. Like Anthony mentioned, they're bringing back their manager from their past 2 World Cups. They sat very, very deep in a 4-4-2. They don't really come out of that. Like you guys already mentioned, yes, England does play pragmatic. They do play slow. They do play intricate, but they also don't concede. Like I already mentioned in our preview podcast, they didn't concede at the Euros until the semifinals. They're only allowing 0.67 expected goals per 90 throughout World Cup qualifying and the Euros. So they're going to control a lot of possession. They have the attacking players that can get that one pass, get that one breakthrough against this Iranian defense. And I really just don't see how Iran is going to come out and score against them. So I like England to win 0 at -130. I got them projected at -152 to win 0 against Iran. So that's where I'm going in this match for the 3 Lions.
Yeah, form going into the World Cup does matter, I think, and 0 wins in 6 matches for England definitely has me concerned about them a little bit. The more I think about it, and I know it was the Nations League, and we're not really sure what to make of that, but there is history that suggests that teams playing the best going into the World Cup, their last 5 matches, tend to do the best in the actual World Cup, and that would be a strong case for Brazil, Argentina, the Netherlands, and Uruguay does not look favorably upon the English.
Yeah, so get those England to not qualify 8-1 bets in while you still can. All right, let's wrap this thing up by looking around at the Tuesday matches. Anthony, we'll start with you. It's I guess you could call this one an elimination match between Mexico and Poland. It's huge.
Yeah, this is likely to be the match that decides second place in the group. We expect Argentina to get through here, but we're not really sure what to expect between Mexico and Poland. I think this is kind of similar to me for USA Wales, where I'm really out on the European team and I don't want to bet them in any way, shape, or form because I think they're pretty overrated. Poland and Wales in this situation. Poland had very mediocre underlying numbers in World Cup qualifying. They got pretty well destroyed in their Nations League group in the non-Wales games. They did beat Wales, but they got crushed by the Netherlands and Belgium in those other 4 matches. But I still have question marks about Mexico too, but I think my question marks about Mexico are a little bit fewer. I think Mexico's biggest concern could be age profile and how well they're able to recover for these matches and play 3 matches in 10 days because they are getting a little bit older and they're not quite as consistent as they were going into the last couple World Cups. But I still think they're the better team than Poland, solidly so. And so I'm going to take them draw no bet on the -110. It's pretty close to a pickup. I think they have a pretty solid midfield advantage. The only great equalizer here, of course, is Robert Lewandowski, who can go off at any time. But Mexico is better in BJ's ratings. Elo has them better. I think they're a much better team. I'm going to take them -110, draw no bet.
I like a disgusting under here. France and Australia under 2.5 goals, +120. I think anything plus money is fine here. The Aussies, the Socceroos, they're just going to put 10 guys behind the ball and dare France to break them down. Their physical side, they're going to make crosses into the box really tough. They'll win second balls. France is a very creative offensive team. They're going to want, time. They're going to want to be a little tricky, and Australia's just not going to let them do it. They're just not going to give them any chance to do it. They'll be overly physical. And for a first match of a World Cup where everyone's coming from all their, club teams around the world, the Aussies, for the most part, are all playing together in the top division in Australia. I think that this is a cohesive group that should give France some trouble breaking it down. Eventually they will, but it could take a while. You're basically asking France to score 3 goals here to get to the over, because I don't expect Australia to do it unless we see another Tim Cahill Wondergoal, and he's retired, so I don't think that's very likely. So you're asking yourself the question, will France score 3 here? I think it's less likely than it is likely. So I like the plus money on under 2.5 goals. France and Australia on Tuesday afternoon. All right, BJ, take us home.
Yeah, I like the Denmark-Tunisia under 2.5 goals at -125. The reality is that this Denmark team, we've talked about them a lot. They went to the semifinals of the Euros. The main reason for that is because they're a very well-drilled, cohesive unit that's been playing together for a long time. They're very, very well-organized defensively. They only allowed 0.88 expected goals per 90 throughout Euros and World Cup qualifying. They will be able to control a lot of possession in this match. I highly doubt they're going to be very as aggressive as they were towards the end of the Euros when they needed to actually get a lot of points. You saw it, even after Christian Eriksen went down, they were very passive and passive in their match against Finland. Tunisia is an interesting team. They're coming out of Africa. They beat Mali over the World Cup qualifying playoffs. Over the two legs, they only created 0.73 expected goals. They played Nigeria in the Africa Cup of Nations. They only created 0.55 expected goals against them. So I don't expect Tunisia to really threaten this Denmark defense. And Tunisia does have a very good engine room midfielder in Elias Shaqiri, who plays for Cologne in the Bundesliga. He's all over the pitch. He presses well. He defends well. He is a great protection for their weak back line. So, and honestly, the Denmark front line of Kasper Dolberg, Mikael Damsgaard, Skov Olsen, it's not really great in terms of finishing. So I project this match at 2.17 goals. So I like the under 2.5 at -125. And the last game we didn't talk about, Argentina, Saudi Arabia. You will have Saudi Arabia, all their players play in the Saudi Pro League. That league's been on pause since the middle of October. So they will have a rest and training advantage over Argentina. But the reality is that this Saudi team is not good out of possession. You saw their matches in Asian qualifying when they had to play Japan, when they had to play Australia. It was not good. They did look like they didn't know what to do out of possession. But if it gets to a flat +2.5, I will have to take Saudi Arabia because of that rest advantage, because of the training that they've had coming into this match. And we're at the last World Cup as well, and they've faced some decent competition. So that's where I'd be going in that one. But that is probably the biggest snoozer, I would say, of these first round of matches.
That guy Lionel Messi for Argentina,
he's okay, I guess.
Minus 163 to score any time in that one. All right, that wraps up our first Wondergoal live episode for the World Cup. We will be back on Tuesday evening to preview the matches through next Friday, so be sure to join us then. But until then, a reminder, Wondergoal is presented by bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey and Colorado. Bet $1 on any game, get $200 free. For Anthony Dabbundo, for BJ Cunningham, I'm Michael Leboff, wishing you the best of luck with all your World Cup bets.